The internet has this completely backwards idea that faithfulness equals quality, that the best adaptation is the one that replicates the source material most accurately. But it's a lie, and it's why we keep getting disappointed. Usually people argue accuracy, but comics and TV don't share the same constraints. Accuracy isn't about copying a panel, it's about preserving intent. And I think nails that difference. The show is shot for shot when it supports the idea, and a rework when the idea needs different timing to land. With season 4 around the corner, I thought it'd be interesting to talk about some of my favorite changes, and why Invincible may be the perfect adaptation. Season 1 adapts roughly issues 1 through 13 of the original comic, yet moves the Guardians Massacre from issue 7 to the end of episode 1. The early twist isn't a spoiler, it's reframing every scene that follows. By doing this, they preserve tension. Comics can slow burn because your eyes control the pace. TV needs escalation. Watch how the pilot's last 2 minutes turn a solid superhero coming of age story into dread. Meanwhile, the D.A. Sinclair arc in the comic drip feeds over dozens of issues, occasionally feeling like a side quest. In the show, it's compressed into a focused episode that still hits the ethical gut punch. But now it serves character momentum. Mark's inaction becomes action. William's worry becomes a catalyst. Same pieces, new rhythm, but the meaning is still there. The show does have an advantage with creators being hands-on. Robert Kirkman scripting pivotal episodes and Corey Walker's designs defining silhouettes. That's why it feels authentic. Nobody knows the characters better than the people that made them. Invincible treats panel order as negotiable and theme as non-negotiable. The violence is still about fragility, not shock. Omni-Man is still terrifying because he's intimate, and Debbie, too often a supportive background character in 22-page chunks, becomes an investigative spine whose decisions drive the plot. The comic's biggest weakness isn't ideas. It's the queue of stories needing to come to a conclusion. You've got D.A. Sinclair, Robot's transition, Viltrumite foreshadowing, Alan's audits, Flaxton's retaliation, and a rotating cast of B-plots all screaming to be ended. That drip is part of the serialized charm, but it also dampens tension. Animation fixes it without flattening it. Issues that pay off 20 to 50 chapters later works for a comic, but for a show, hour-long episodes let you consolidate arcs into mini-movies so consequences arrive before you completely forget the build-up. Moving the Guardians Massacre to the pilot doesn't just spike shock, it rewrites pacing. Every villain of the week becomes a stress test in a world with no safety nets. Flaxtons invade 3 times, learning bans, countermeasures, and finally, what happens if your dad takes over the world? It's escalating. The comic spreads those beats across years. The show compresses them, so dread compounds. The biggest change in the show for the better is Debbie. In print, she's loving and present, but often reactive. On screen, she becomes the investigative lead. The show slows down to let her figure things out. Read fabric and notice the tears you'd only clock if you've laundered a superhero for years. Though your mother is more like a pet and, in the grand scheme of things, lines hit differently because the series spent hours building Debbie's state of mind. We watched her choose to look, to doubt, to test, and when Nolan reduces her, it's like a knife. In the comics, she was also an alcoholic and lashed out at Mark, even blaming him for driving Nolan to do what he did. She apologizes later, but that's insane. Eve also gets a massive promotion. In the comics, she was kind of a mean girl, hitting on Mark while he was still dating Amber and kind of only ever revolved around Mark. In the show, she actually has a mind of her own. She works on developing her powers and helping her community in other ways than just beating people up. Like, her powers involve manipulating matter, so she goes to college to get a degree in architecture to learn the principles of building and construction to actually be able to use them effectively. Rather than just collapsing constructs, she wants to have lasting creations that are structurally sound. Another change that serves the story is Mark and Cecil's dynamic in season 3. Cecil has some of the same traits as his comic counterpart, but the show leans a lot more heavily into him being an anti-hero, and I find the debate between Mark and Cecil in season 3 really interesting. Mark is angry at Cecil because he uses bad people like D.A. Sinclair to help create more Rhiannon as soldiers, and Mark is essentially saying that he's irredeemable and should be in prison for life instead of using his talents for good. Cecil is coming from the other side of the spectrum. He knows people can change and he needs everything at his disposal to help keep the world safe. And the more threats that pop up, the more it seems to be necessary to have all these contingencies locked and loaded. Cecil definitely cares for Mark, but as he says himself, he's scared shitless of him. If Mark turns evil, he's aware of the amount of damage and destruction he could wreak on the world. The flashbacks of Cecil when he was a young agent solidify that he was just like Mark when he was younger, a little naive and seeing things very black and white. But as he's gotten older, he's realized that things aren't as simple as just bad guy, good guy. It's more complex than that. Mark may not be wrong, but when Cecil calls him a hypocrite, he's kind of right. Mark isn't keeping the same standard for his dad. Even after Chicago, he hugs him. Hell, even Oliver later on. Sure, Cecil probably goes a little far with the Rhiannon and with the sonic implant, but he does these things out of fear, and same goes for Mark. Mark doesn't want people like D.A. Sinclair to hurt people, and Cecil doesn't like that Viltrumites can just come to the planet and fuck shit up with nothing he can do to stop it. These opposing sides are in the comics, but it's fleshed out way more here, and Cecil is much more reasonable in the show. Like in the comics, Cecil just tells Mark to follow him into the White Room to start throwing hands. In the show, Cecil tells him to go home and tries to avoid the situation altogether until Mark threatens him. Another noticeable change is Conquest's arrival. Most things are pretty one-to-one, but major changes would be Eve getting more time to showcase her powers, compared to the comic where she just gets murked straight away. And most importantly, Conquest's monologue to Mark. It provides some much needed depth to his character. He talks about how lonely he is and how all the other Viltrumites fear him, recognizing that they don't see him as a person, but a weapon. It expands the isolating life of being a Viltrumite. Their only focus is to expand their empire, saying he didn't even get a real name, only a purpose. Also, a change I want to rapid fire out is the fleshing out of supporting characters. Rexplode and Ray, for example. Ray in the comics is a boy and straight up just dies in the Lizard League fight. In the show, she survives and starts a relationship with Rex. And Rex did have a change of heart in the comics as well and tries to be a better person after his lobotomy, but here it's a pretty big focus and it makes it a lot more impactful when it comes time for Rex to explode. Next, I want to talk about something a little different. There's recently been talk of a live-action Invincible adaptation, and holy shit, that would suck. Whether it's a show or worse, a movie, animation will always win. Invincible's set pieces aren't just big, they're violent, kinetic, and readable. You always know who's hitting who, why it hurts, and what it means. Animation turns chaos into a readable sequence. Strong posing and timed holds make every impact land as story, not noise that your eyes glaze over after a while. Take Omni-Man vs. the Guardians. Shaky cams, quick cuts, body doubles doing close enough movement. Here, it'd almost be framed like character assassination. Red Rush's skull getting crushed isn't gore for the sake of gore. The slowed rhythm sells inevitability. War Woman's mace swings have weight. You're watching choreography that is saying something. Trying that with prosthetics or CGI would ruin it. Even the Mark vs. Conquest fight or the Chicago sequence. This is where animation really has the advantage. The brutality serves theme. The acting stays intimate because faces aren't drowning in CG. Mark's eyes while the train chews through bodies, or when Conquest basically uses Mark as a battering ram, brutalizing all those people. It's a drawn performance. No uncanny skin, just intention. Animation makes impossible physics believable by choosing when to be true and when to be expressive. Mark ragdolling through skyscrapers sells Viltrumite force with ease. Live action would completely weaken the effect. Let's play this out. You have an R-rated live action Invincible movie with an 8-figure budget. You're stuck between two bad choices. Overcut to hide limitations, or hold and expose the bad visuals. This is why people criticize Superman's VFX. I like the movie by the way, but since it isn't cutting every 2 seconds like that other Superman movie, it holds and lets it breathe. In turn, you get some nice camera movements, but the effects end up looking a little wonky. Invincible's animation lets the violence argue its ideas. Every dismemberment is saying something. Humans are fragile, gods are indifferent, and power is immoral until someone assigns it purpose. The spectacle here isn't bigger, it's readable. Animation wins every time because it aligns the physics, pacing, and performances without compromise. Live action would overcut, overprice, or overprotect, and in all 3 cases, underdeliver. I know I just glazed it, but one of the biggest criticisms Invincible gets is its animation. Usually in episodes 1 through 7, you'll have some bad, like PNG moving across the screen bad to passable animation, and then in the finale you'll get some crazy shit. And yeah, this is fair, but really I'll take mid animation for 7 episodes to get what we got in the finale of season 3. Some of the obvious reasons for this, at least to me, would be that seasons are released yearly, so you don't have as much time to work on the animation and they have to cut corners. They also have an all-star cast: Aaron Paul, J.K. Simmons, Clancy Brown, Peter Cullen, Walton Goggins. I imagine this is where most of the budget is going, but like, if writing is good, then I don't really care. Plus season 4 is looking way better, but we'll see how that ages. This is why Invincible is the perfect adaptation, because not only is it faithful, but it improves on pretty much everything from the comics. And you don't see a lot of good adaptations. Faithful, sure, but you need something more than just accuracy to make it worth a viewer's time. After the release of season 1, I really didn't want to wait ages to find out what happened next, so I read the comics, and I honestly kind of wish I didn't and went along for the ride. As I was writing the script, the trailer for season 4 came out. It looks great, and hopefully I get this video out close to its premiere, and this may be going into a bit of spoiler territory for the future, so here's your warning now. In the trailer, you can see that Nolan and Debbie reunite. Now in the comics, she kind of just accepts him pretty quickly and they get back together, and I am praying for a lot of pushback from Debbie in the show. My man called her a pet, lied to her for years, and tried to take over the world. I doubt they will make her forgive him so easily, especially with the screen time and independence she's gotten so far. And it's probably a given that they do end up back together eventually. I don't think they'll scrap that whole thing, but I'm just hoping that it's a significant amount of time. Like 6 episodes to a whole season's worth of time. Just so Nolan can have a realistic enough time to prove he's changed. The writers haven't let me down so far, so I'm confident they'll make the right call, but I think it's worth pointing out. Other than that, super stoked for the next season. I've got to end this video now so I can get it out by the 18th of March. I've been Antradox, subscribe and all that, you know what to do.